I was so lucky just to make it as a teacher. You know, I'm so happy my wife's here today. I remember she walked in my class my first or second year, and she just walked out. She said, "I'm never going in there again." And I thought, yeah, she was. Yeah, I forgot you were subbing. The principal came up to me one day and said, "Blaine, don't ever get sick. We can't find a sub that will take your class." When they sent the superintendent to evaluate me, I knew I was in trouble. So I just went to another school. I lasted there 1 year. They didn't offer me a contract back, so I went to my third school in 4 years. And I made it there 2 years until the principal came up and said, "Blaine, you've got to get more kids in your class or you're not going to teach here anymore." And that got my attention. And that was the year, though, 1980, when I found James Asher's book, Learning Another Language Through Actions and How to Teach with Commands. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is me." And I went in the classroom and gave those kids commands. I did that for months. I had a girl that went in Costa Rica. She had my class out of the book for a year, and she went to Costa Rica for 6 months. She didn't learn anything with me, but in Costa Rica she learned how to speak Spanish. So I had the kids give her commands for a whole hour. It was all in Spanish. They had 3 months of TPR with me. The class was fun. We laughed every day. And they had her do weird things like pick my shoe up, throw it outside. This kid came, stood up and said, "Un perro agarra el zapato y corre, corre, dog name on your shoes," all in Spanish. And I said, "Tammy, what you think about that?" She said, "That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Those kids learn more Spanish in your class in the first 3 months of your class than I learned it living in Costa Rica." And I thought, "Yeah, this is TPR. This is it." You know, but I went in and kept telling them to stand up and sit down and run and jump, and they wouldn't do it. You know, they told me with their faces, "You know, we know how to do this. The game's over. You know, you're not going to get us to do this forever." And so I decided to do something wrong and get out of the book every year, and I do it again, and it still didn't work until it was about 1983. I found Stephen Krassen's book called The Natural Approach, and I read about his hypothesis of learning language. And one of them was language is learned by comprehensive input. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's what I'm missing." And so I went in and started teaching with what I thought was comprehensible input, but it turned out to be a lot of incomprehensible input. I just didn't know how to do it, you know. And I looked at the book, and he said how it was working for me, and I didn't know how to do it, but I kept experimenting. But I did find one thing that worked. And so this was 1983, about 28 years. I remember the first story in the class was the cat story. And I wanted to teach kids how happy and sad. And this girl with this cat, and the boy grabbed the cat, jumped on the cat, and killed the cat. The girl cried and everything. And that worked. You know, these kids, they learned this story. And I started just doing more and more. And finally, over years, I just said, you know, this is really the way to teach is with stories. And have these kids dramatize these stories. So that in 1983 was kind of the beginning of storytelling, and it's just amazing to see how it's progressed and how it's used all over now. And Conti Seeley is here too, and he was a co-author. In 1989, James Asher agreed to publish the book that I wrote, and I tried to write this teacher's manual, and he wrote me back and said that I was such a bad writer. He said, maybe you could find a ghostwriter or something. So anyway, I did better than that. I found a co-author that was patient. It was Conti, and Conti and I, we wrote Forces for TPR Storytelling. But Conti was so patient with my writing, and he brought me, I get so sick of these emails, he brought me back and said, "Are you sure you mean to say this?" I don't know what I mean to say, you know, let me fix it, you know. And he was amazingly patient on everything, and so if you get a chance to introduce yourself to him. Yeah, Conti wants one of the thrills that I've had over the years is hearing from former students. Now, I taught out a textbook for 5 years when I told you, and I've never heard from any of those kids. And I really don't expect to either. I did hear from a girl last night, and she just emailed me. And her name was Brittany Swen. She said, Profe, this was on a Facebook email. She said, I wanted to write you a quick note to thank you for everything you taught me in Spanish class. I use it every day as a pediatric therapist at a facility in East Austin that serves low-income families. I always have people asking me where I learned Spanish, and they are always astounded when I tell them I learned in high school. I probably cursed all of those mini cuentos then, but they really help me now when I'm writing notes to the parents or exercise programs for the kids. Muchas gracias. Estás un maestro increíble. But I've heard from those kids. I just heard from another girl, and she wrote in Spanish, and she said, Profe, yo sé más español que tú piensas. She said, I know more Spanish than you think. And then she wrote, han pasado 16 años desde que estaba en tu clase. This was all an amazing past tense. 16 years have passed since I've been in your class, and I still know the Spanish. I had a girl that was, she emailed me on Facebook, and I said, Melanie, I'm going to be in Boise. Why don't you come to my workshop and just say hi? And so she did. And when she came, she was in my class in 1989, and I said, I just asked her, I said, what do we do? What do you remember about class? And she said, all I remember is we did stories and everything. And she said, I only had you for a year, but my other, just because I left the high school that year, but her older brother and sister had me for 3 years. And she said, they are fluent. They use Spanish all the time in their jobs and everything. But she said, I only had you for 1 year, so I really didn't, I didn't learn that much. Not even know, she said, I don't think I remember anything that happened, all 20 years ago. And so I said, Melanie, I opened up this Spanish book that I'd written, and I said, let's see what you can do. And so I said, read this in English. And so it was a half a page, and she read all of that, and she missed 3 words. And that was after 20 years. And some people say, oh, well, you might have done that story. That story was written 15 years after she'd been in class. And I thought, it's truly amazing just what TPRS does and how it sticks 10, 20, 15 years later, they can still do it. I got one more thing and then I'll put it. I know I'm over time. One thing about TPRS is, I've got some bad news for you. You're probably never going to arrive. None of us probably ever will. It's something we just keep working on. I had a little bit of a breakthrough this year, and Susie and I were in Panama, and there's Patricia Lewis is there. If you get a chance to meet her, she's organized kind of the NTPRS of Panama. And watching her this last day, she had people act out these stories, and just had them all good. And so I've been doing this in workshops. It's just amazing how I just assign everybody a part and they act it out. And in doing this, I've been learning Chinese because part of the group, we always get a Chinese group. And me sitting there learning Chinese, I just feel, oh boy, I've got to slow down more and I've got to point those words. And so this week I was in Memphis, I just pointed to every word, and I got down and I said, oh my gosh, I'm doing this so much better than I was doing before, And I just thought, I've been doing this for 28 years. It was 28 years since the cat story, and here I'm still working on this. I know one workshop, I had my chickens in the wrong place, and I've got to get those chickens over there, and I've got to point to those words, and I just started pointing and pausing every word, and I just thought, I'm just starting to get this. And so if you've been working on something for 20 years, feel like you're starting to get it, why, maybe it'll give you guys some hope. There we go. Thanks a lot for coming.